come to Baktria, and Baktria used to be, when they came out, they used to be a powerhouse of vast proportions, with their Bactrian Royal Cavalry, their Bactrian Noble Horse, their Horse Archers, their extremely good elephants, and the elephants are still good. But let's take a look at the roster. So your Bactrian Royal Guard are kind of special hoplite units, because they have the good armor, melee defense, good melee attack. They have a weapon damage of 29, a pretty low armor piercing. But the thing is, they have frenzied charge and expert charge defense, so these guys can potentially be pretty good in melee, even against infantry. But the frenzied charge is going to reduce their melee defense, and it's going to fatigue them. So with the warrior, with the strategist general, you're going to be able to use second wind and battle rhythm on them to good effect. Bactrian Royal Cavalry, good at stopping enemy chariots, extremely good at charging with their 76 charge bonus, all around good shock cavalry stats, slightly better than your Pontic Royal Cavalry, but they are slightly more expensive as well. And then we have the Indian Armored Elephants, and these guys are beasts in more senses of the word than one. They are super heavy elephants. They will run amok to a single volley of good javelins or good fire arrows, so you need to keep them away from enemy skirmishers, but in a rare charging and flanking role, these guys can get a massive amount of kills. 500 or more is not unusual on these guys, and they also are immune to fear, and they scare everyone. So with your strategist general, you can use second wind on them to trample, and then trample again to reduce the fatigue levels. With the warrior general, you can charge in against the unit, and then you can use war cry and intimidate on the enemy general to stop him from being able to rally or raise his banner. So that can be pretty useful. Very devastating units, but they need to be used correctly, and one volley from precursor javelins, even from these Bactrian hillmen, could be enough to make them run amok and potentially make them wreak havoc in your own lines. For melee infantry, you have a pretty slim selection. You have the Bactrian hillmen. They are basically hillmen that are slightly better, can be good at rear charging and such. Thorax swords, we went over those in previous videos, but they are solid mid-tier sword infantry. Eastern spears, not much to say about them. Decent against cavalry if they aren't charged. Thuria spears, very good hybrid units, able to support fights with javelins and then rushing in, also able to function defensively with their square formation. So for more information on the specific formations, I would advise you to have a look at the mechanics videos that I also have up. Then you have the scale thorax hoplites. They look very cool. They are decent hoplites. They are the mid-tier hoplite choice of Baktria. And they are slightly less armored than other hoplites. They have a high melee defense and decent charge bonus. Went over the Bactrian Royal Guard in the general selection. You have the Levy pikemen that are slightly worse than your pikemen. Again, thorax pikes have a bit better attack and a bit better armor than your standard pikemen. They also have better base morale, but they are still vulnerable to being rear charged, flanked, and to missiles. So for the missile infantry, you have your decent Persian light archers. They are vulnerable to missiles, vulnerable in melee, but they can do a lot of damage if they are able to fire unopposed. You have your Eastern javelins that do a lot of damage, 41, very good against elephants and chariots. Eastern slingers, good cost-effective slingers with a bit of armor, less than your Balearic slingers, I believe, but still they have more missile damage than the crap tier slingers. They still have the low base morale, so these guys are going to rout to just about everything. Peltasts, your standard peltasts, these guys have less armor, more ammunition than these guys, good against elephants and chariots. And then we have the Bactrian peltasts, and these guys are a bit special in that they have the more armor, and they also have precision shot, which is going to increase their base damage. Mercenary Syrian archers are good archer units that have 40 armor. All of that is body armor, none of it's shield armor. These guys are slightly worse than your Cretan archers, and also because their missile damage only is 35, but they have something the Cretan archers don't, which is precision shot. But the precision shot is going to fatigue them, which is going to make them slower, and it's going to reduce their accuracy also. So pretty good archers, but you can only bring 3 of them. Then you have the elite Persian archers, and they die to everything. But they still have the precision shot and the heavy shot, but if you're going to use these, you need to really keep them away from enemy skirmishers, and you need to, although they have spears to use against cavalry, they will get smashed by most cavalry in the game. Bactrian Royal Cavalry, good shock cavalry, good for stopping chariots. Then you have your Hellenic Artifacts, and these are a bit problematic, because while they are very powerful, they are very slow, they can be tied down in melee easily, and they are just so expensive. Good units, but very expensive. Baktria Light Horse is a kind of a special, pretty decent skirmish hunter. It won't do well in melee against other cavalry units that are more expensive, but it can be decent at hunting down skirmishers and being annoying. Citizen Cavalry, not much to say about it. It's just your standard mid-tier melee cavalry that is decent against other cavalry and skirmishers. The Baktria Noble Horse is a very good melee cavalry, and this should probably be your first choice of melee cavalry. It can defeat most melee cavalry below it, and do very well if it's able to avoid getting charged by shock cavalry. So pretty good units, with 95 armor and 90 health. They are very tanky. Mercenary Scythian Horse, some of the best horse archers in the game for their price, if we don't consider the Amazonian riders. The missile damage is very good at 40, but they're going to die to everything and anything in melee. Still, they have heavy shots, so always a good thing to have these guys around. Horse skirmishers do very well against enemy elephants, and can be annoying against cataphracts and other heavy units that can't really catch them. Vulnerable in melee and vulnerable to missiles. Your standard horse archers are about the same as the Scythians, but the thing is that they only have 35 missile damage. So the Scythians might be a better choice here, but you can bring more horse archers. And you have the mercenary Tarentines, skirmishing cavalry with good armor. Then you have the Bactrian horse archers, and these guys are pretty special, because these guys have okay armor for being horse archers, but they can also function in melee, because they have a melee attack of 40, which is pretty damn good. They also have good weapon damage, with good armor piercing damage, so these guys can be deceptively strong in melee if you're able to rear charge and charge light units. When we get to the elephants, we have the Indian War Elephants, and the problem with the Indian War Elephants is that while they do have good health, they have pretty low base morale. These guys are more susceptible to fire than the Indian Armored Elephants, but they are a lot cheaper. But as you can see, the melee attack on these guys is about half of what it is on the Indian Armored Elephants. They also have a smaller charge bonus and melee defense, so decidedly less tanky than these guys. These guys are beasts, but they are so expensive that it's going to severely limit the rest of your roster. If you're going to use them, you need to tie down enemy infantry, you're going to have to tie down enemy skirmishers, so pretty difficult to use them effectively, but if they are used effectively, then it is pretty devastating. So that's it for Baktria. We'll have a look at some Bactrian builds here, and I freely admit that I'm not the best at picking effective builds, so I'll just show you something that I've found to work decently some of the time, at least. For your mainline infantry, you kind of have two choices. You can go for a spear corps, or you can go for a thorax sword corps, or you can go for a mix of the both. So you really have 3 choices there. And if you're going to go up against a faction with good infantry, thorax swords are a pretty solid choice. If there are going to be chariots on the field, your Bactrian Royal Cavalry can be nice, and I'll just go over first sort of a balanced build, then a rush build, and then a more skirmish type of build. So Thuria Spears, good for protecting the flanks and supporting fights with their javelins. It's going to give you additional skirmishing capabilities. Then you have your Eastern Slingers that can be very effective in just throwing slingshots and doing damage from afar. And your most effective horse units are going to be these Bactrian Noble Horse. So you can bring 4 of those, for example, in a type of setup like this, or you can bring 3, and then you can go for some additional horse archers, maybe take out an Eastern Slinger. Then you have some money left to spend on this. So this could be a pretty nice, fun to play with Bactrian army, with a more sort of a balanced focus. If you're going to pure up rush and you want to use your Indian armored elephants, you can go for Indian armored elephants, some thorax swords, and now you want to have a decisive cavalry advantage, so you can tank up on these Baktria noble horse, and you can also bring some horse archers. If you take out the noble horse, you can bring some more horse archers, and that's going to enable you to be pretty annoying in the skirmishing and take out key enemy units. Still, it's going to be pretty difficult to use a type of setup like this, because, well, other factions can do what you're doing a bit better. So you have options, but rushing with Baktria, it's going to be difficult. If you're going to go for a more skirmish type of setup, you can go for your Bactrian Royal Guard General. You can bring some levy pikes just to hold the front while you are busy shooting the enemy to death with your Eastern slingers. Also, you want probably some mercenary Scythian archers in there, Scythian horse archers, and some thorax swords on the flanks to protect your flanks. And if you want some more cavalry here, you can take out, for example, your levy pikes, and then you can go for your Bactrian nobles. If you want more of those, you can go for a type of setup like this. So not the best build, but a build that can work So that's it for Baktria. I hope you found some of that useful. I'll see you again on the battlefield.